Speaker recognizes Representative Irwin.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to address the body. I rise to urge my colleagues to let the voters decide and vote no on this measure. This is the third time we've been at this. Here we are again and again and again, talking about the issue of whether or not citizens in Michigan should be hunting wolves. Is the pack large enough? Does the scientific data suggest that now is the time to start allowing that activity or not? But the response I keep getting from my constituents, the calls I'm getting into my office, the words I hear on the street are, why doesn't the legislature let the voters decide? Hundreds of thousands of people have signed these petitions. Why doesn't the legislator trust the very voters who send us here to sit in these seats to allow those voters to make that decision? Where is the respect from this body for the citizens? Why do the politicians in Lansing think they know better than the people they work for? This is an issue where hundreds of thousands of voters have asked to vote on it, and we should be respecting that process. We should be respecting our employers, and we should be letting the voters decide. Especially at a time when voter apathy is at an all-time high. Many of our residents are wondering why it's even relevant for them to turn out and vote. And it's our job to give them a reason why when we go back to our communities to represent what's happening in Lansing. And it's our job to give them additional reasons why by allowing them to use the referendum process, allowing the processes in our state constitution that we took an oath to play out. But this isn't just about the process of respecting voters and allowing the referendum process to continue. This is also about the policy of the issue. There are real questions about if we were to follow scientific management rather than just raw political pressure, what decision might the NRC make? I know I studied the NRC hearings. I don't know if everybody looked at the testimony that was offered in front of the Natural Resources Commission, but if you looked at that testimony, you'll see mountains of scientific evidence presented by opponents of the wolf hunt. And you'll see no scientific evidence of a biological nature from the folks who were supporting a wolf hunt. What you saw from the supporters of a wolf hunt were arguments about the economic opportunities, about the job opportunities that would be available in some parts of the state due to allowing a wolf hunt. But you didn't see data about the size of the herd, the ability of the herd to maintain its viability. And in fact, when the NRC took their vote, you'll probably noticed that there's only one no vote on that Natural Resources Commission. That one no vote came from the one scientist on the Natural Resources Commission. So the one person with a science background who was analyzing their decision clearly from a scientific perspective said, no, it's not time for a wolf hunt in Michigan. I also would point out that there's been, I think it's fair to say, scare tactics on both sides. Now, I have a tremendous amount of respect for hunters and anglers. I know that when we look at our resources for conservation in Michigan and preservation of natural areas and preservation of wildlife, all of those resources come from hunters and anglers. So believe me, I listened very, very carefully to the arguments that those folks made to me in my office and publicly, and I listened to the arguments that a lot of legislators made here on the floor on behalf of their viewpoint. And if we want to talk about scare tactics, let's talk about scare tactics. Arguments that wolves were running wild in the UP, threatening school children. These are the types of arguments that propelled Senate Bill 288 to success and later required the very maker of those arguments, one of our fine Senate colleagues, to apologize for exaggerating and conflating facts and making up instances of wolf-human conflict that just were not real. We also found out that much of the wolf livestock conflict that was happening in the Upper Peninsula was as the result of one particular farmer who had a tremendous percentage of the violations. This is the same farmer who had been repeatedly cited for violations on his farm of agricultural management practices, things like leaving carcasses out and not cleaning them up. This is the sort of thing that attracts wolves, right? And I guess the kicker for me is that I believe that this room and state government is filled with people who are good-natured and who want to do the best to protect the people in Michigan. And I know that if there really were wolves menacing school children on their way home, walking from school to their house, that we'd have DNR sharpshooters up there right now taking down these wolves. Right? We wouldn't have waited for a hunting season to bring in folks to maybe cull 23 of these animals. We would be protecting these children. But the reality is there isn't blood on the streets in the Upper Peninsula as a result of 600 and some odd wolves. There simply aren't. These animals just came off the endangered species list, and if there is a time for us to start talking about hunting wolves, I don't believe that time is now. But the most important issue is the process, letting the voters decide, letting the citizens have the voice that they were promised in the Michigan Constitution. And that's why I want to close by asking you, Mr. Speaker, this question. The bill is titled the Scientific Fish and Wildlife Act, but the title of the bill is misleading. This is about wolf hunting, and by reading that title, you wouldn't have any idea that this would delegate any powers to the NRC that were formally delegated to the legislature. You don't have any indication that this would nullify the referenda on the ballot in November. And not only do I think it's a shame that we would present to our voters 2 questions on the ballot that have absolutely no impact on state law or their lives, and I think that's a disservice to our voters, but I also think that it is inappropriate under House rules and our Constitution to have the title of the act be so misleading. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on the question of passage of the initiative petition, there are 65 aye votes and 43 nay votes.
A majority of the members elected and serving having voted therefore, the initiative petition is passed.